Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k. Today I thought we'd check out the Heavy Intercessors from the Space Marine Codex. So before we get into the video guys, do me a quick favour and hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already. We release review videos every weekday, Monday to Friday at present, and we love to build on our Space Marine support. So going on to the video, the Heavy Intercessors come in at 7 power level for a unit of 5 models, and if you take between 6 and 10 of these models, it will cost you 14 power. Point wise, it's going to be 28 points per head. Now there are a few upgrades that we will mention later in the video. Now these guys come in the troops battlefield slots, so obviously they come with objectives secured. They fit into any of the marine chapters. They've also got the infantry keyword, so they're benefiting from all those infantry buffs. They've got MKX Gravis armor, and as with most infantry units within the codex, they've got the core keyword. So again, benefiting from a lot of character buffs as well as stratagems. So a brief look at their stat line there. Movement 5-inch, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 3, attacks 2, leadership 7 and a 3+ save. The unit also comes with a sergeant which will gain an extra attack and an extra point of leadership, making him leadership 8. So quite interesting as these guys have an additional wound over the standard intercessors. A min unit of 5 heavy intercessors will cost you 140 points, which would actually get you 7 normal intercessors, but as these heavies have an extra wound, you're getting 15 wounds as opposed to 14 with the regular ones. Also the heavy intercessors are toughness 5, so right off the bat I'm quite liking the look of these heavy intercessors. Also a noteworthy mention here is how good 3 wound models actually are. If your opponent has a lot of damage to weaponry and gets 3 wounds through against regular intercessors, it's going to kill 3 of them. But against your heavy intercessors, it's only killing 1, as one of those models is going to tank 2 of those dice rolls, which means one of those damage is actually wasted, and the third dice that goes through is only going to put 2 wounds on the second model, not killing it. So 3 wound models can really get your opponent wasting a lot of damage here. So looking at their abilities, they've got the Marine standard of having Angels of Death, which is that umbrella of 4 different rules merged into one. So the 4 rules are, and thou shalt know no fear, which is the ability to not take any modifiers in combat attrition tests. You've got Bolter Discipline, which affects how you use your rapid fire weapons. Shock Assault, which is where if you charged, were charged or heroically intervened with your unit, then each model in the unit gains an additional attack. Then finally your Combat Doctrines, which is a buff for your armor penetration of all your weapons. So each battle round gives you a buff for certain weapons. So battle round 1 gives you a -1 AP modifier to your heavy and grenade weapons. Battle round 2 does the same with rapid fire and assault weapons. Battle round 3 you've got the option of keeping it the same as round 2 or changing it to pistols and melee weapons. And then the 4th and 5th battle rounds will just stay on pistols and melee weapons. So that's the 4 rules within the Angels of Death ability. They've got one more ability here called Combat Squads, which simply allows your max size unit to split up into 2 halves just before you deploy them. So this is going to aid against your restrictions for detachments when building your list. So for example, if you take 10 heavy intercessors, it's only going to take up 1 slot for your troops battlefield roles. So it's going to free up more slots. So it's actually quite good tactically, as you've got the choice of keeping them in a huge 10-man unit, which will be a really tough unit to deal with, or once you've seen your opponent's list you might feel like splitting them up, as that may be more beneficial to you within the game. So going on to the weapon loadouts here, so these guys come stocked with the regular gear that Marines have, so your bolt pistols, your frag and crack grenades, but they also come stocked with a heavy bolt rifle. So these are a 36-inch range, rapid fire 1, strength 5, -1 AP and 1 damage. So really solid range on these, and with rapid fire 2, so double tapping at 18-inch. And if they stood still, it will be a 36-inch range where you're double tapping because of that bolter discipline we spoke about. Because if you're an infantry model and you stood still with your rapid fire range, you get the max range with double shots. You'll be wounding most infantry units on 3s. And that -1 AP modifier is a nice extra touch too, especially if your opponent's unit is in cover as well. And don't forget your Combat Doctrines, if you're in battle round 2, you can add another one of these -1 AP modifiers to your weapon, making it a -2 AP modifier. So there's quite a few upgrade options here, so let's get stuck into those. So if no model in this unit is equipped with a heavy bolter, then you can take one of the following options. So all models in the unit can have their heavy bolt rifles replaced with 1 Hellstorm bolt rifle each, or all models in the unit can have their heavy bolt rifles replaced with 1 Executor bolt rifle each. So the Hellstorm bolt rifles are range 30, assault 3, strength 5, no AP and 1 damage. So you're sacrificing a bit of range and AP for an extra shot or 2 per model. So a 5-man unit will be firing these out at 15 shots, whereas the heavy bolt rifles, you'll either be getting 5 shots or 10 shots depending on that rapid fire. You also have the option of advancing these guys and firing the Hellstorm rifles with that -1 to hit penalty if needed. The second option here is the Executor Bolt Rifle, which is a 42-inch range, heavy 1, strength 5, minus 2 AP and 2 damage. So there's a huge range on these, and minus 2 AP with 2 damage a pop is pretty crazy. Of course, now you're only getting 5 shots from a min squad of 5 guys, and the weapon is heavy, so moving it will incur a minus 1 to hit modifier, but a solid option for a backline objective camping unit that throws out a good amount of anti-infantry firepower. So now for every 5 models in the unit, one of your Heavy Intercessors can exchange their weapon for either a Heavy Bolter, one Hellstorm Heavy Bolter, or one Executor Heavy Bolter. So basically one guy in the 5-man unit can take one of the heavier guns. All 3 of the weapon upgrades will cost you 10 points, so let's check those out then. So the first is the standard Heavy Bolter. Now remember, from the first upgrade list, if you've got any Heavy Bolters within the unit, then you can't use the other upgrades that we've previously went through. I'm not sure why they've put that limitation on there, but so the Heavy Bolter is quite commonly known in the 40k game, so we'll run through it anyway in case you don't know what the stats are. So they're 36-inch range, heavy 3, strength 5, minus 1 AP and 2 damage. So not only does it have the good range, but it lets you have the 3 shots, you also keep the minus 1 AP and you're still on 2 damage a pop. But again, it's heavy, so moving it will force you to hit on 4s unless you find a way to buff the unit. The second option here was the Hellstorm Heavy Bolter, which is a range 30-inch, heavy 4, strength 5, no AP and 2 damage. So the same strength again, strength 5 is a running theme with these guys now. No AP this time though, but the heavy 4 gives you that extra shot over the Heavy Bolter at the cost of a 6-inch range, and the minus 1 AP of course. And the final option here is the Executor Heavy Bolter, so it's a 42-inch range, heavy 2, strength 5, minus 2 AP and 3 damage. So like the Executor Bolt Rifle, it has that range and the AP and the damage, just fewer shots. So I think your weapons really all depend on who you're up against. If you're up against an army with a lot of 1 wound models, especially on 6+ saves, then you want as many shots as possible. So for example, if you're playing against orcs or demons, then that AP and damage isn't that important. You just need a sheer amount of shots. Whereas if you're going up against an elite army with lots of wounds such as Marines, then the Executor weapons would be more ideal because it just clears models off the board. So this means I don't have a particular preferred weapon of choice here for you, but as I said, once you know what you're up against, you can kit your guys out accordingly. Now if you don't know who you're up against, then the middle ground is probably the safer bet, so stick with the stock heavy bolt rifles because they still retain a good amount of range and they've still got the minus 1 AP and a solid amount of shots. Also don't forget all your weapons are affected by the combat doctrine, so on that certain battle round you'll be getting that extra minus 1 AP modifier to your weapon, so make sure you're firing at that correct battle round to get the best use out of them. So looking at ways to improve this unit within the book itself, so firstly you're going to be looking at the stratagems. So there's unyielding in the face of the foe. For 1 CP, this is where if your unit is targeted by damage 1 weapons in any phase, you can give the unit a +1 to their saving throw against those weapons. So if your opponent is trying to throw out mass firepower at your unit and trying to beat you in numbers, then cut those numbers down by having a 2+ armor save. Uncompromising fire for 2 CP allows your heavy boys to perform an action and still fire their ranged weapons, so very handy for your secondary objectives. Steady advance also for 2 CP lets you move normally but be considered to have remained stationary. So this is going to help your bolter discipline to double tap on your rapid fire weapons from the max range even while you've moved, and it also aids the heavy weapons as technically you've not actually moved, so there's no -1 to hit there. Adaptive strategy for 2 CP lets you have all the doctrines open for a turn. You do need to have your warlord alive and on the battlefield to do this. Hellfire shots for 1 CP lets your one model in the unit that has got the heavy upgrade weapon fire a single shot instead of its actual weapon, and if it does score a hit with it, the opponent's unit will suffer D3 mortal wounds, and if it's a monster unit it's going to be a flat 3 mortal wounds. So they're the ones I'd consider sticking on this unit throughout the game. Other synergies that work quite nicely would be having a warlord trait called Storm of Fire, which is a 6-inch aura for core units to benefit from, and it makes their wound rolls of a 6 have an additional -1 AP. Just bear in mind you can't stack this with your combat doctrines unfortunately, but if you're not in the correct doctrine then use this and then you get it anyway. If you are using a Psyker, then Might of Heroes can be handy, giving you a +1 to your toughness. I mean, they also get a +1 strength and +1 attack, but I wouldn't want them in combat if I'm honest. Also, Psychic Fortress can be used to give them a 5+ in-run save, so that's more durability there. Looking at the Litany options, you can add to your durability even further with the Litany of Faith to give a 5+ feel no pain roll against mortal wounds, so very effective against things like Smite. Catechism of Fire is nice to get a +1 to your wound roll for ranged attacks as long as you're firing against the closest eligible units. So as your guys are strength 5 and you're most likely wounding other infantry on 3s, it's going to be going up to 2s, so pretty nice. Similarly, you can do this with the hits roll with recitation of focus, so giving you a +1 to hit. Now all the captains give your units rerolls of 1 that are within 6 inches with their rights of battle aura. So it's quite a common known bit of synergy there, especially for your core units. Now the lieutenants do the same thing but with wound rolls, so you'll be re-rolling 1s to wound. Now we've already mentioned the librarian powers and the chaplain litanies, but the apothecaries are also quite good as well. So they've got 3 different ways of aiding your unit. So firstly, combat restoratives to regain D3 lost wound for your models in each movement phase. Secondly, the narcissism, which gives your unit a 6+ feel no pain roll against any wounds taken. And then thirdly, there's a stratagem called Combat Revival for 1 CP, so you simply return a dead model back to the unit with all of its wounds remaining. That's quite a crazy stratagem in itself, that one. So that's the synergy with other units and the rules within the codex. We've yet to discuss which chapters would benefit from your Heavy Intercessors the most. So purely using the Marine Codex with the chapter tactics here, Imperial Fists have the Siege Masters, which removes light cover from enemy units, and also if you hit with any bolt weapons on a 6, you will then score an additional hit. So this is going to apply to all of their weapons because they're all bolt weapons. So the Crimson Fist chapter tactics called No Matter the Odds is where if you're shooting against a unit that's got 5 more models than your unit does, then you're going to get a +1 to the hit roll. And they've also got the same rule as the Imperial Fist do, which is if bolt weapons hit on 6, you score another hit. Dark Angels have Grim Resolve, where if you don't move and so you're staying stationary, you're going to be +1 to your attacks roll, and they're also going to be automatically passing combat attrition tests as well. Ultramarines have got Codex Discipline, which is a +1 leadership, so your leadership value is going to be going up to a 9, providing that your sergeant is still alive. The chapter also allows your unit to fall back out of combat and still shoot your ranged weapons, although it will be a -1 to hit. It's definitely worth it though, as your guys should be shooting, not in combat. Raven Guard have Shadow Masters, which gives them all sorts of cover shenanigans, so if you're targeted from more than 18 inches away, then you're going to get the benefits of light cover, and if you're within a terrain feature and you're targeted from more than 12 inches away, you're also going to be considered as if you're in dense cover. There's a lot of durability in that chapter. Now if you wanted to use any transports within the unit, then you'll need to be getting a repulsor, although only 5 models can be taken due to the MKX Gravis armor. Now personally I wouldn't bother with the transport as they've got a solid range, and they should be camping on your own objectives or middle of the board objectives. They've got no real reason to be up close and personal with the enemy. So to conclude with my thoughts on these guys, another solid option. I mean, the Codex seems to have so many of these solid options within the book. There's not that many bad options here really. They're very durable, and I believe them to be better than the standard Intercessors points for points, although the standard Intercessors do have a lot more options to play with. Strength 5 is always nice, but it's not that versatile in the sense of targeting different units, such as monsters or vehicles. I mean, it does have the versatility of changing the amount of shots and what you can slightly do with the AP and damage, but this is only to sort of counter your opponent's army. The unit's only real purpose here is to be targeting enemy infantry units. So again, it's not firing at vehicles or monsters. But saying that, the Codex has numerous other ways of dealing with those kind of units, so it's not the worst issue. The main thing here is durability. Sitting on an objective with a min unit of 5 guys, which is a total of 15 wounds and all at toughness 5. That's quite a lot to chew through, and then once you start buffing the unit with whether it's psychic powers, apothecaries, litanies, they become even more of a challenge for your opponents to deal with. Most characters do synergize with the unit quite well due to them being a core unit, so they're pretty useful in that sense too. As for their rating, I feel like there's a common theme here within the Codex, but I'm going to be giving the Heavy Intercessors a Planet 40k rating of 4 out of 5. Now you won't go wrong with the unit, they're definitely above average, but by no means are they an auto-include or overpowered. I'd be wary of them getting caught in combat, even though they do go up to 3 attacks each with shock assault, but against a combat orientated unit, they're going to get chewed through. So guys, that's the review for the unit. Let me know your thoughts and also share how you use them within your chapter supplements. I'm sure there are tons of combos within each book. Now I'm holding off using the 8th edition supplements as they'll soon be getting updated anyway, but when they are released we'll go over any new chapter rules and buffs that extend the usefulness of this unit even more. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.